Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rights for Vets. I have a little joke for you, and I'll do the 30 seconds, and then I'll tell you what the answer is. The joke is, how do you make holy water? Again, how do you make holy water? Think about it, and I'll tell you the answer. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Rights for Vets. Yes, the question is, how do you make holy water? You boil the hell out of it. Think about it. Cute little joke. Anyway, um, today I'd like to talk about, again, what's going on with America and our government. For one thing, I feel sorry for the people that was entangled by the government's fury. For instance, the fentanyl that's coming in our southern borders, the illegal immigrants that are coming in and not being processed properly, not knowing their names, where they're living at. I feel sorry for the people who have been murdered, killed, and I feel especially sorry for also for the people who have to grieve by it. It's not right that these people just go into a place and rob the place, beat the shit out of somebody, burn the buildings down, and just do whatever they want to do without any consequences at all. And as you can see, the district attorneys in blue states just let them in and walk them right out again to cause more havoc. This is done purposely, people. It really is. This could have been stopped a long time ago. Our government are the ones that are starting the fires, and they're going to act like the heroes to put it out. That's a crock of bull. Think about it. I mean, they blame it on us constituents or the Republicans. Who has full control right now in the House, Senate, in Washington? The Democrats. Yet they blame it on everybody else but themselves. They're vicious people. Vicious people. And they're doing it purposely. I don't know why, other than the fact that it's a one world order they're trying to get. But I knew one thing: they're getting paid off underneath the table. They're getting rich while we're getting poor. As I've said before, and a lot of you probably would know, that your diesel, the heat for your homes, for transportation, air flights, or just vehicles or semis going down the road might be completely stopped in about another, I don't know, 13 days just before Thanksgiving. We're going to run out of diesel fuel because the Democrats didn't want us to have fracking, our pipes, oil pipes, and they're shutting everything off. But yet, again, they blame it on Russia or Ukraine. They don't blame it on themselves. Again, they're doing it purposely. They're forcing people right now to get electric vehicles that a lot of people can't afford. It's just like when we had standard tools and they changed it to metric. Spend, spend, spend. Anybody who has boilers, that's over 100 million right now, BTUs, which is quite a bit, they're going to have to get rid of and have electric instead of oil or gas. They're going to have electric heat. That's going to be astronomical. They don't want American people to live. What they tell you in front of you on television is nothing but lies. They're good actors. Probably went to Hollywood just to talk to people. And as soon as you turn your back, they stab you. And they keep stabbing you. You come right back and smile again on TV. Oh, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. Well, they have the right to lie by law. And they do lie. They'll say anything, do anything to get power. Their job's got to be the best job in the world. They don't pay for nothing. We pay for it all. Our military money is going to squat, and it's getting bad. All right, let's listen to an expert here that knows better than I do. If you're curious about what's going to happen, I advise you to listen to this all the way through. If not, just walk away, because eventually you're going to find out the hard way. There's no doubt about it. And I'm telling you what, even when the Republicans come in, don't expect a miracle, but hold them accountable for what they do. Kick them out. They're going to do this and do that. There's not much they can do. If they pass laws, Biden's going to veto anyway. They're going to try. The only thing they have, again, that they can hold over Biden is the power of the purse if they win the House. Biden can't spend money. That's the only thing they have right now until you get a Republican House. And again, I would hold them accountable. Again, you have Mitch McConnell, who's a rhino, Mitt Romney, who's a rhino, and Lindsey Graham, who's a rhino. Oh, now I see Oprah Winfrey went to Pennsylvania to help Fetterman. What a joke. She's a socialist all the way down to, she made money off of scalpers watching TV. I never cared for her in the first place. My wife watched her, I should say. But she was a con job. And she helped Oz get popular on TV and turned right around and stabbed him. They don't want democracy. They want communism, socialism. They want it their way. And they're going to get it their way if American people don't watch out how they vote. If Wade versus Roe means more to you women than your lives down the road, then do it. Vote for the Democrats, because I'm telling you, in the long run, you're going to die anyway. You will die, and it won't matter what happens. And it's just the way it is. I don't hold no bars. I'll be doggone. How you doing, JH556? Haven't seen you in a while. How you doing, young lady? You and 12B will be talking here. So, without further ado here, I'm going to start this video, and it's up to you whether you want to watch it or not. It's not the best thing in the world. It's boring in a way, because if you don't know what's going on, it's boring. There's no doubt about it. But for a lot of people, this is going to be important for their lives. So, don't you two-time me there at JH556. I see that. Watch yourself, 12B. I'm watching you guys. All right, here we go, everybody. We'll start it up right now.
With just a week left ahead of the 2022 midterm elections, it looks like the ground is eroding for the Democrats here on the political trail. Joining me today to talk about this and so much more is George Gammon of Rebel Capitalist Pro. George, always good to see you. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. So there's a lot going on. I want to talk about your thoughts ahead of the midterm elections here. What should we be watching? What's the main game changer here?
One thing I've been watching is the Biden administration has come out with more stimulus checks in an effort to help people better manage their energy bills going into the winter. And for those who understand economics, you realize that this is just going to exacerbate the problem, because the way that you fix inflation is you decrease demand and increase supply, and they're doing the opposite. They're giving out these stimulus checks, they're increasing aggregate demand, and then they're reducing supply through the sanctions against Russia, and with all this narrative towards a windfall profit tax, and it's creating huge issues that we see pop up in the diesel market. The inventories there are close to an all-time low. 25 days of inventory is all we have left. These are big, big problems. But my point going into the midterms is I think what they're going to do is they're just going to try to buy votes any way they can. And if that's through just giving out monies that's going to make these problems that we have in the economy worse, that's exactly what they're prepared to do.
And speaking about that, it's a huge amount, $13 billion in aid to families to help lower their energy bills. I mean, why release that now?
Well, I think you called it, because of midterms, because it makes them look good, and it's all just political theater. And because the average Joe and Jane looks at that and says, well, yeah, George and Danielle, I mean, of course, they're going to give them free aid. I mean, this is the humanitarian thing to do. But they don't understand economics, and they don't realize that by helping them with their energy bill, you're just hurting them with their food bill. There's no free money here. So if you're going to reduce the cost by giving people money for X, you're going to increase the cost of Y. So on net balance, over the long run, it's just going to put them in a worse position. You think we would have learned this back in 2020 when we shut down the economy? We did all these lockdowns, these governments, these central planners, these authoritarians, and then they gave out these stimulus checks, and it caused what? Inflation. So the poor and middle class are worse off today than they were in 2019. But now what these politicians are trying to do is just double down on the same bad policies that created the problem in the first place in an effort to buy votes. It just goes to show you, Daniela, something I talk about on my channel all the time, that you've got to come to the conclusion that these politicians are either stupid or evil, or maybe some of them are both, because that the Kamala Harrises of the world and the Bidens and these other people, they know that this policy, using this one as an example, is going to make matters worse, but they do it anyway. So why would they do that? The only conclusion you can come to is that they either don't get that the policy's bad, or they know the policy's bad, they're doing it anyway because they're just plain evil people, because they have no moral North Star. They're ethically bankrupt. And that's the group of characters we're dealing with right now when it comes to the politicians, not just in the United States, but all the bureaucrats with the EU and the global elite at the World Economic Forum, the IMF, the UN, etc.
And I want to talk more about that. But, I'm just, it just leaves you scratching your head, really, George, because here's the Fed doing everything possible to fight inflation, and yet we keep releasing these type of bills.
Yeah. And I think where this goes, Daniela, just for your viewers going into 2023, there are no certainties, only probabilities. But my base case is there's going to be a political push to prevent Jerome Powell from continuing to raise rates. Now, I'm not talking about today or, in the next quarter, but going into 2023, they're going to try to prevent him or pressure him, let's say, to stop raising rates. This is assuming that we still have this inflation problem and we haven't had a deflationary bust between now and then with the stocks and the housing market, et cetera. But then I think what they're going to argue is, okay, stop raising rates, but the way we're going to tackle inflation is by giving stimmy checks, like we're seeing now, to help people afford the higher prices. And we're going to institute price controls, just like we had in the 1940s and just like we had in the 1970s. So we're going to stick it to those greedy capitalists who are increasing prices to crush the poor and middle class by capping the amount of price increases that they can actually implement. We're going to take their profits away from them. So I think this is kind of the battle cry that you're going to hear going into 2023. Again, to be clear, let's stop Jerome Powell from raising rates or these central bankers globally. Let's go ahead and institute price controls and then give people free money to afford the price increases that we've had up to this point.
Because at the end of the day, to benefit whom?
Well, it's going to do a few things. Number one, it's going to be able to buy votes. Or, it's like Jim Grant always says, the politicians, they're the arsonist and they're the firefighter. So they're the ones that create the problem of inflation, but then they can come in on their white horse and say, hey, we're going to solve the problem with these price controls and giving you free money. And then, the people say, oh, well, that sounds good to me. Where do I sign up? And then they go ahead and vote for them. I think that's the angle here. But let me add to that, because I think there's also a Cantillon effect component of this. I mean, I don't know if you saw in the news recently, but this new gal up in Calgary, I think Smith is her name. She's the new premier up there. She just got rid of this agreement, this consulting agreement that they had with the World Economic Forum. And of course, she's being called a conspiracy theorist and all these things. Well, why on earth did the government, the Canadian government, had a consulting arrangement with the World Economic Forum? And you say, well, George, what was the consulting arrangement about? It was a health consulting agreement. So, and I don't know the details. I don't know if there was payment for the World Economic Forum. I would assume that there was, but this is how these things work. The politicians come out and say, hey, we're going to go ahead and spend all this money, but we're going to hire these consultants, these global elite. We're going to hire Klaus Schwab as a consultant. And then if there's a $13 billion program, Klaus ends up getting $1 billion of it, let's say. And then you say, well, George, what's the incentive for the politicians? Because Klaus has all of the politicians under his influence, and he's able to help them get elected. So you hear him come out and talk and brag, quite frankly, about how Trudeau and Putin was in his young political leader program as well, and Angela Merkel, and I think Macron was in there. And so he's saying, we got all these people that we influence in political positions of power right now. Okay, well, now those people are going to pay Klaus back for getting them elected in the first place with all these boondoggle programs. So this is the scam that's going on right now. And it's something that just most people aren't aware of.
And, I don't know if you follow this, but the Trudeau government announcing that Canadians will get a GST tax break this week. So those checks are in the mail in Canada as we speak, George.
Yes, and we've seen the Christina gal, I forgot her last name, she's in charge of the IMF. And we've seen Rebecca, ironically enough, her last name is Greenspan, spelled a different way, but she's in charge of the UN. They have also echoed these same narratives or these same kind of strategies, if you will. And that's, let's stop the central bankers from raising rates. Let's go ahead and implement what they're calling targeted price controls. And that's,
I want to
go ahead.
Please.
Oh, well, that's why it shows that they're treating the average Joe and Jane just like they're complete morons, that they're just the hoi polloi down there, just the plebs, that they can convince them of anything that they say. And this is just a perfect illustration of that they can, come out and argue that, oh, we don't have to raise rates, that we can just issue more and create more aggregate demand, and that you're just going to buy into that, just like a sheep or some lemming march,
George, I want to get back to your point where you said that they will prevent Powell from raising rates. When you say they, are you referring to the current administration, and is that tied to a political agenda with the presidential election?
I think so. And again, it's like they all get a script, and you see them saying the same things. And this is why I'm very confident that they'll start using that same script here in the United States. And because, to my earlier point, we've seen the UN talk about this, we've seen the IMF talk about this. And, I don't know how it works behind the scenes, but to think that there's not a significant amount of influence that's placed on the Federal Reserve and Jerome Powell by the administration, I think is completely ignorant. I think it's obvious. Yeah, they might have some struggles back and forth, but at the end of the day, I think the Fed is going to do whatever the administration wants them to do. And if that's stop raising rates and so they can implement price controls and do more deficit spending, I think that's pretty much the highest probable outcome.
Which do you prefer? Now, I know based on your cap, it would be to end the Fed. That would be your ideal scenario. But do you welcome a return of QE, or do you think that more tightening is needed? What scenario do you want?
Price discovery. Daniela, look, they're trying to micromanage the economy. We already know how to manage an economy. The best way to do that is through prices. They always talk about increasing liquidity. Listen, we don't have a problem with liquidity as long as we allow a clearing price. So let the free market create the price of money, just like we did in the 1800s when we had free banking, which I'd like to remind everyone that the prices from 1800 to 1900, 100 years, went down by 50%. And this is with fractional reserve banking, but you just had the government out of it. We actually were able to determine what the prices of goods and services, including money, was supposed to be set by the marketplace. So all of these problems that the Fed is trying to fix, whether it's inflation, whether it's QT, QE, the Treasury's coming out now, Janet Yellen, and saying that they're going to do a bond buyback program or a debt buyback program. It's basically an Operation Twist. And they're saying, oh, we've got this problem with liquidity at the long end or with the off-the-run treasuries, and we need to replace them with more on-the-run or bills. Again, just let the prices set themselves, and it's going to handle all of these issues. Now, will we go through some significant pain from A to B? Absolutely. Absolutely. But you can't get the heroin addict back to a place of normalcy, back to a sound footing without a little bit of withdrawals. And that's what we need to go through as a society. But it's a very easy problem to fix. Just go back to free market capitalism.
I want to bring up an article I read with great interest. It was an op-ed in the Boston Globe, actually, centered on the BRICS, right? And they basically say there's a new sheriff in town, or at least a new applicant. And it talks about how the BRICS are gaining steam, gaining momentum, gaining power. And could we see a rebellion against the US and Europe? Is it already happening? And I just want to, add this for context. BRIC was coined in 2001 by Goldman Sachs, who saw Brazil, Russia, India, and China as emerging titans. South Africa joined in 2010, hence the term BRICS. The group will hold a summit in Cape Town where leaders of the 5 countries may accept Saudi Arabia's application to join. That would increase the power of a bloc that already represents 43% of the world's population and 1/4 of the global economy. I'm curious to get your thoughts about the growing strength and momentum of the BRICS here.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to who has the power? The people that create the green pieces of paper, or people who control the energy and commodities? You see, for several decades, the financial economy, in the West, has had all the power. But now I think what you're seeing is that these BRIC countries are starting to kind of scratch their head and say, why should we play by your rules just because you print green pieces of paper? That doesn't make any, or because you have the euro and that's a good currency. No, listen, we have all the stuff you need. We have the oil, we have the nat gas, we have the fertilizer. So why should we play by your rules? If we have the stuff that the whole world needs, we need to flip the table here. We need to flip the script. I think that's exactly what they're trying to do.
And this will be a fight that the US, I assume, will not, give up lightly. What weapons could the US use?
I think they've already shot their weapons from the standpoint of what are you going to do? You're going to take them off SWIFT? Okay, that doesn't do anything. You're going to issue sanctions? That doesn't really do anything. And they've just got all these other customers like India and China they can sell to. I'm obviously talking about Russia. So I don't know what they can do other than just try to start World War III and create a nuclear war. And I mean, I hate to go down that path,
Right.
but we see this type of rhetoric becoming more and more commonplace with the mainstream media and the politicians in the West. And I think that's a direction we could be headed. You know, it's interesting. I read Ray Dalio's last book, and he said that what you see throughout the course of history when empires rise and empires fall is the empires that are in decline always realize that it behooves them to go to war sooner than later. Because if they wait too long, then they're going to get completely wiped out because, you know, by definition, they're in decline. And the empires that are on the rise, they tend to hold off a little bit because they know that they're gaining power. So I think this could be what we're seeing play out in geopolitics right now. Because, you know, let's look at we go back to that diesel shortage. You know, you say, what can the United States do? So hopefully we can solve these problems, and we don't have to solve the problems by having a GFC 2.0, which would just reduce demand to a point where the demand supply was in equilibrium. But if we can't, and because these issues are definitely structural, and they go back to the sanctions, they go back to the lockdowns as well, where we put all the refiners out of business. So now we're having to pay the piper here, right? But let's just assume that you go to a world that's not too far off, where the United States has no diesel. How do you get your food, right? How do you heat your house if you're in the Northeast? I mean, you sit there and people say, oh, that's kind of a conspiracy theory, you're fear mongering. No, you're not. You got 25 days left. And that could possibly go down to zero. And if it goes down to zero, now all of a sudden you're literally living in a hellscape. It's like a zombie apocalypse. And we're right on the brink of that because we're having to find out the hard way that green pieces of paper don't matter as much as energy, commodities, food.
And I guess, you know, as final thoughts here as we wrap, it's something that I know you've been talking about a long time. You tweet about it. You say, if you still think talk of a reset or, you know, are just conspiracy theories, it's time to wake up because it's all unfolding, George. It's happening now.
Yeah, it's right in front of your eyes. If you're one of those people, like that, you know, we go back to the premier in Calgary, and she's saying, hey, I want to get rid of the World Economic Forum. Why are we having a health agreement with them when they're not health officials, right? And the pushback to that is always, well, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're a conspiracy theorist. But I think those people that are kind of using that term now haven't come to the realization of just what's right in front of their face. You know, I tweeted out the other day that it's just like them calling people who are, instead of flat earthers, people who believe the earth is round, calling them a conspiracy theorist. You know, that's where we are right now as far as the political debate. And Danielle, you know as well as I do, and I think everyone watching your show right now realizes that today, in today's world, conspiracy theorist just means you're a critical thinker. And it's just like, you know, protecting democracy means increasing censorship, and dangerous ideas just means unapproved ideas.
I think there's a lot of truth in that, George. I know you got to go, but I want to know, and the people want to know, assets, is there anything you like right now in this insane environment we're in?
Yeah, absolutely. T-bills. I just bought some for my own portfolio yesterday, 6-month T-bills. We go back to the yield curve right now. And when the yield curve inverts with the 2 and 10, the 2-year and 10-year, this is a very powerful indicator, but it doesn't give you a lot of timing, right? It's pretty much 18 to 24 months. You're most likely going to have a recession, 95% probability, call it, going back to the 1950s. But when the 3-month inverts with the 10-year, that's more of a timing tool. And usually that means that you're right in a recession or you're headed there very, very quickly. And if we go into a recession, I think there is a high probability that the Fed pivots, especially if there's an a disorderly decline in asset prices. Not a soft landing, but a hard landing. And you can get a 6-month T-bill right now for about 4.5%. And what I'm doing personally is I'm keeping my dry powder in that type of T-bill because long term I want to buy commodities. I think that we are in a super cycle that will last for probably 10, 15 years. But they're expensive. They've run a long way. So it's not like I'm a buyer at this price. I'm waiting for them to come down. I've got a watch list set up. So with
you wouldn't buy gold at this price.
Gold, well, I always buy gold because it's insurance, so I buy it at any price. But I think a better question is the gold miners. And yes, now I think it could be a good time to buy gold miners and Bitcoin as well, because again, I think that 3-month inversion with the 10 years telling you that we're closer to a Fed pivot, a lot closer to a Fed pivot. In which case, again, I like the dry powder in T-bills, because you get a pop if the Fed lowers rates, and then you can take that cash, buy commodities, or for those who like Bitcoin and gold miners, now might be a good time to consider buying.
Well, that's it, people. There. I know this is not the best channel in the world, but it's got an education that'll help you out. You got to realize what's going on. Really, it's your life online. You're going to see it this winter with the lack of diesel, gas, and everything else. It's going to happen unless they somehow make a miracle out of it and get diesel coming in. I don't know. We'll find out, depending how cold it is too. But I'm not the channel here that's going to be raving, rad, harassing people. I'm here just to do one thing, to educate people. Because when that day comes, they can't say, well, we didn't know about it. The best thing you can do is vote right. That's the only thing you can do. Start buying food, get medical, peroxide, Picurcone, whatever it takes. Needles, thread, stitch yourself up, glue, whatever. Buy yourself some seed for next summer if you can. Get ready because shit's going to hit the fan. It's going to hit it hard. If this comes down with the Republicans, we'll be safe for a while. But again, like I said, they can't do very much because Biden will veto everything. I think he will veto everything. You can see how bad it's changed in just 2 years, and it's going to get even worse. I said this 2 years ago, this is going to get worse. You can see it now. Protect yourselves, people. I'm not out here for my health, trust me. I don't know how long I have to live. Only God knows that. So it doesn't matter to me one way or another. I'm just trying to help you people out. I mean, I took myself in the military just so this family of people in America could be free. So it's up to you to do the rest. You have to unite together, stick together, find out what's going on with the government, learn. Monetary money is not going to last long, not the way they're spending it. A dollar don't mean nothing. And again, if that diesel thing comes up, we're not going to have any food. Be nothing to run on, nothing. No trains, no jets, no nothing. And again, this is what they want. They put all these fires on us. Now you expect the government's going to take it and put it out? No, not for a while yet. They're demons. And they're getting paid by Klaus, the G summits. And I found out something about New Zealand. They haven't done it yet, but if they implement these laws, they're going to have a hard time with food and cattle because they're not going to be eating down there in New Zealand. They haven't passed the law yet, but the farmers are having a fit right now. I mean, they're having a fit like they are in the Netherlands, Dutch country, and I guess they're having like a convoy like they did in Canada. Again, this is happening all over the world, and it's done purposely because of the G summits. They all talk together. You don't know what they say until they come back here and you see the results. I don't know, people. You decide what you want to do. If I was smart, though, I would diversify and start getting gold, silver, whatever you can do. Invest in a company that you can rely on. If you can do it, because your money ain't going to be with us yet. And I'll tell you what, if you don't want to do that, start spending your money that what you're going to need. Tent, heating, equipment, propane, little tanks of propane, anything. Prepare yourself. Boots, coats, heavy coats, before the money runs out. And I mean, the money's going to run out by, it ain't going to be worth nothing. So it's up to you, people. I'm just out here to explain things that's going on, trying to help you out. And look on YouTube again, like I said, to learn how to survive. Very important. Because if this comes down like I know it is, you're all going to be in a heap of trouble. You're going to have your pants down. You're going to say, what the heck happened? Because it's going to happen all at once. And again, if the Republicans come in, it's only a slowdown. The inevitable is going to happen. We spent too much money too fast, and they know it. And they did it purposely. They made money out of us for their special deals and their friends. And that's all it is. All right. Other than that, I thank you. Race for Vets are out. And I'll catch you later on. And like I always say, y'all come back now. You hear?